Hi, my name is Vyushti, and I'm a student at LHS. And today I'm going to be voicing some community concerns regarding the Bloom Project with two people directly involved with this process. Today I will be talking to Sarah Carter, who is a member of the Lexington School Committee, and Joe Pato, who has served on the Lexington Select Board since 2013 and who's also a member of the School Building Committee. So, hi, I just want to ask you guys, first of all, some people say that this is a $1 billion project. So where does that number come from, and what's the real cost of our new high school building?
So welcome and thank you for inviting us. Uh, so $1 billion project. No, it's the budget for this is $659.7 million, which is a large number, but that is the budget that's been authorized by town meeting. And there are people who are postulating cost overruns or some other magic that increases the number, but it can't go up without going back for a town meeting vote and townwide vote. So 659.7 is the ceiling.
Right. And being a student myself, I've heard a lot of students say that the new school building will mean less money for teachers to buy things like markers, books, and other classroom supplies. Is there any truth behind that?
So the way we do our budgets, there are kind of like different buckets where our money goes that pay for different things. And we have something called an operating budget, which happens every year. And we say, this is the money you have to run whatever it is. It could be the money we have to plow the streets for the snow. It could be the money we have to pay for people to come and pick up our trash and our recycling. And for the schools, we have the operating budget, which is our money to pay the salaries and then pay for everything else that we need to run the schools. And those are set every single year, and it's based off the money the town brings in from taxes. Another bucket that we have in our budget process are kind of capital projects, big projects that we do as a town. It could be schools, it could be other buildings. Really, if there's really a big project that we can't pay for in 1 year out of the monies we bring in, we look into doing that. And the high school is going to be a capital project, meaning we're going to be borrowing money to pay for this. A good way to think about this is maybe like your parents' houses, where most people can't just write a check for whatever their house is worth. So they will instead get a mortgage where every month they pay a little bit to the bank to help pay off the cost of the house. And even though they have a mortgage, that doesn't mean that they aren't going to be able to buy food. That doesn't mean they're not going to be able to buy gas. They still have money, probably from their weekly or every other week paycheck, that helps pay for the things you need just to continue living and doing the things you want to do. And the town is a little bit similar like that.
Yeah, Sarah's absolutely right. I mean, the only thing is, it's like a mortgage, but a town like Lexington, we don't go out and get a mortgage from the bank. We issue municipal bonds that are tax-free for the people who purchase the bonds. That means the interest rates we pay are a lot lower than what a family might be paying on their mortgage.
The other thing I want to say is right now, it costs a lot of money for us to keep the high school going. We spend over $1 million a year for heating and electricity for the building. We spend money for our facilities, for parts and labor, just to keep the high school going. With the project we're proposing, those are expenses we're not going to have once the new school is online.
Right. I think that comparison between a mortgage and how we're paying for our new school building is important to help visualize with. And, I think you're right. I think the community needs to know that, with this new school building also comes what comes with like having something new. It's like less maintenance costs and, less costs and budget allocations going towards, band-aiding the school that we currently have. And, this might just be like a little bit of personal finance knowledge that I might have picked up last year, but is there any like way that we're going to incentivize these bonds to our local community at hand?
When we issue bonds, we issue them through brokers, and it's a competitive bid. and we take the best, so lowest true interest cost. Frequently, that means that the company that is going to issue the bonds pays us a premium, which is money that we apply toward what we pay for, reduces the net result. For local individuals, we can't do anything special for anybody. You buy these bonds through a brokerage house or um, an investment house.
And now I want to jump right into where the new school building's actually going to be built and what it means regarding Article 97. So one of the things that worries a lot of athletes and parents and people from the community in general is the idea that we might lose these fields permanently because of Article 97. Could you explain what Article 97 actually means and in this context what it would mean for our fields with this new project?
Sure. Let me start by what is Article 90? Article 97 is part of the Massachusetts Constitution, and it protects open lands, recreation lands, and the like. And it essentially says you can't use this for a different purpose without there being a grant by the state legislature. And for the legislature to let us use it for something else, they require a land swap so that we're providing equivalent facilities. So that's what is this, right? In our case, we have land that has the football stadium, the practice field, and the Little League field. And we're going to be building the new building, like that's what we propose, on those in that area. Those fields will be out of commission while the building's being built. After the building's built, so we're expecting that students will move in the fall of 2029, so 3 years of construction. The old building will be torn down, and that area will be converted to playing fields. So all of the existing fields will be recreated in a better condition on the footprint of where the old school is located. The one thing that's slightly different about that is at the moment, the plan is for the Little League field to actually move up to Lincoln Field immediately so that we would never lose use of the Little League field. And it was going to replace one of the softball fields that exists up at Lincoln Field. And that softball field will be recreated in the area of the old school building, the old high school. In the meantime, the town is planning to build some new fields over where Old Harrington is. So over the next few years, we should be seeing an addition of fields for play. Now, what we won't have during the construction time is the football stadium. But the athletics department is looking at how to provide for practices and for games for the football team over those years. This is a common thing in Massachusetts. There isn't lots of extra land, so when schools need to be rebuilt, it's almost always the case they're built on the fields, and over time, you swap the fields with the school, and for the construction years, that community is using fields either somewhere else in town or using neighboring towns' facilities while they're at away games, right? So they're swapping who's away and who's home.
Right. Thank you for clarifying that particular aspect and also about explaining the accommodations in process to help, remedy the fact that these fields will not be in use while the new school is being builded, and also what you guys are going to be doing to kind of like support the athletic community nevertheless, and what your plans are in the future for, better athletic fields in general. So another thing that, tends to fly around a little bit about Bloom is that it's oversized because of the MBTA communities law and future growth. So how do you think, regarding size, why the building is planned at the scale that it is designed at?
Sarah, do you want this one or do you want
Sure,
me?
I'll jump into this one. So right now, the high school has about 2,400 students, and they've had about that number for about the past 5 years. Schools never have where they can say perfectly, this is exactly how many students we want at this school, and we're always going to make sure we have that many students because we're a town, and so everybody who lives here who wants to send their children to the school have the opportunity to do that. The first thing that you do when you start to think about a plan for a high school or a school is how big are you going to make it? And so we looked at long-term enrollment information, and we decided that this 2,400 is about how big we want to build this school. So when it's built, we'll have it'll be it in theory will take about the current size of Lexington High School. But let's take a step back. The high school we have now has 2,400 students in it, but it was actually built for about 1,800 students. So that means it's about 120% of where we would really like it to be. What that means, the way we describe that is it's about 95% capacity. That means at any given time, about 95% of the classrooms are in use. And really for a school, you'd like that number lower. Ideally, you would like that at about 85%. You want about 85% of the classrooms in use at any given time. Why do you want that? Well, sometimes teachers want to work with each other and want to do a project, and they need to find a classroom to bring their two classes together. Or maybe they have a speaker coming in that they want their students to hear. And if you don't have an extra space for that, that can be really challenging. It also makes it very difficult if there are innovative ideas for different classes or electives that teachers want to try, because again, there's no place for them to have that classroom. And then finally, AP scheduling of the AP tests could be very challenging if we don't have extra rooms available for students to take those tests in. So the new plan for the 2,400 is 2,400 students, but at 85% capacity. So that means at any given time, 85% of the classrooms are in use, which would give the administrators and the schedulers and teachers a lot more flexibility. Now, what's interesting is there are some people who say, oh, that's way too big. And then there are some people who are saying, that's way too small. But like we just talked about, there's a lot of flexibility with these numbers. And 2,400, we could really even push to about 2,800, and we really wouldn't notice a major change in what it would do is we'd increase room usage percentage, and there wouldn't be a huge difference that a lot of people would notice. And if it gets smaller, then if we have a smaller population using it, then again, we think about room use and what we can do with that. I just want to say, when you think about a building like this, you're oftentimes building it to last 50 to 70 years, and you're never going to have perfect alignment with the number of students who are enrolled with what ideally you'd like it to look like.
Yeah, I think the thing I want to underscore is flexibility. This design is very flexible. And one of the things that we're doing is including space for the central office in the building. Because by doing that, we've pre-built larger space that if we had sustained increases in enrollment, we'd be able to convert those into classrooms very easily. So that gives us the ability to grow. And as Sarah was saying, it's flexibility. It's also that the rooms themselves are larger and they're appropriately sized, which means even if we were at a denser enrollment population, students will feel much more comfortable in the building, in the rooms. And as a requirement for the Mass School Building Authority, they make us plan for how would you expand the building if you had a sustained growth in population. And these designs have that. We're not building that addition, but the building is built to take an addition onto it so that it would be, if we needed to, we could. And that gets us up to 3,600 students, which is a lot bigger than we have today. And it's not just classrooms, it's the right size cafeteria so that you can have students sitting at tables and spaces where they can gather in smaller areas without feeling crunched. It means that the hallways are large enough for people to walk through without having to go through these choke points all over the place. So the short answer to the question is we're pretty comfortable with this size. This is the right size for Lexington and anticipates growth. And we're not too worried.
Right. As a current LHS student, it's actually really easy for me to absorb everything that you're saying because, flexibility and opportunity, I feel, are two strengths that we could definitely improve upon. And not only that, it kind of comes clear to me that, this is appropriately sized, with education becoming more and more progressive, to meet the demands of students and education in general, I feel like larger class sizes would be helpful indefinitely. And, it's nice to hear somebody who's actually been involved with the project to talk about capacity and what it is at the moment and what it can look like when we're building our new school building. So I also want to ask, a lot of people have been saying, that the state is making us do this. From your perspective, what parts of this project are required and what parts are like local decisions?
So pretty much everything is a local decision. Process is mandated by the state. And that process is in place for all 351 communities in Massachusetts. And what that does is make us use quality architects, quality construction firms. It requires us to have what's called an owner's project manager, which is a company we hire to oversee the architects and the construction manager who are professionals in construction. They're not the ones building the building or designing the building. They're making sure that those companies are doing the right thing. And then we have our own processes for overseeing that, the school building committee and the permanent building committee. So the state is defining a process. It is slow, but in return for that, they're giving us $121.7 million, which will reduce the burden on the town. All in all, that process generates better quality buildings that are buildable, that are built well, and are sustainable. So it's a win-win environment for the community. This is really important for a lot of the smaller communities in town who don't have a professional facilities department. We do, but even for us, going through this process is very helpful in making sure that we're getting the best value for our money and that we are and keep looking outside the box, right? We're not just focused, oh, we want this solution. This is what it has to be. No, we're required to look at a lot of different alternatives and then justify why the choice we've made is the best one. And that is what we've done. What we're proposing right now is the best choice out of a lot of different options that we've looked at.
Right. I think thinking ahead is very important. And, I'm probably not going to be there when the new school building is built. Maybe I'll see it when I come home from college or something. But, as a student who attended Hastings while it was being constructed, I want to know what it would be like during construction because, like, while this is happening, what are some things that families should know about noise, safety, and access while the new school building is going to be built?
So one of the advantages of building new next door is that we can really keep construction and the schools separate from each other. We don't have to intermingle those spaces, which makes it a lot harder if you're trying to do that. So what's going to happen? We're going to take the entire new area where the new high school is going to be, and they're going to put fencing up around it. And normally fencing is something like 6 to 8 feet tall, and it'll be even taller than that. They will put misters on the top to try and make sure any dust or debris stays in the construction area. All of the workers who are working on this will be parking on the campus. So they're not going to be interfering with the students who are trying to park on Worthen Road. They'll be coming into and off campus on Worthen Road, not through the neighborhood. And we'll be working with them to ensure they're not doing that during pickup and drop off for the high school. And then one of the big things is one of the first things they're going to do is build the wall that's closest to the science and math building right now and kind of put that up and then work away from there. So that wall will begin to work as a blocker to noise and disruption that's automatically there. It's going to be happening. And then another thing that we're talking about doing is putting into the science and math buildings that might be facing onto the construction site, putting in some portable air conditioner heating systems, and then putting like an opaque shade on the window so that they are not going to be disrupted or less disruptive from the construction. Anything I missed?
No, pretty much that's it. When we said parking on the campus, it means parking inside that fenced area where the construction is going to be going on, not in the area where students are or faculty is parking. There's the construction company, Turner Construction is the construction company we've hired. They are very experienced in doing buildings like this and in inner city buildings where it's very tight quarters. So they know how to minimize the disruption. It's always, there is construction. It's going to be occurring nearby, but it is entirely different from construction of a renovation in the building while the students are also in the building.
Yeah, so you guys keep talking about parking. Sorry, did you want to add?
No, no.
You guys keep talking about parking. I can't quite drive to school yet, but I know my friends who do would totally appreciate the fact that you're being so considerate about their like parking spaces that they come to school like half an hour early to find. So, that's pretty nice. And I've also heard you talk about, the enrollment of students at the new high school building. And it seems like you have like a general demographic about how many students will actually attend the new LHS over the course of a few years. And I just want to ask, say there was some kind of like residential expansion going on or something that would affect the number of students at LHS by either increasing or decreasing it. How would the committee plan for that uncertainty, and how flexible is Bloom in terms of if our student population changes more than expected or less than expected?
So we touched on that a bit already, but we have been modeling what the demographic changes are, and I think Sarah mentioned that what we're seeing in the younger grades is a sharp reduction in the number of students. From fiscal year 18, so that's the calendar year 18 to 19, the to current enrollments in elementary grades, that's gone down by 725 students. So, and this is not just unique to Lexington, this is a regional and nationwide. The number of children, young children, is shrinking. So from just a natural demographic perspective, we would expect that enrollment would go down. We do know that there's going to be some new housing in town. There are some apartment complexes, some condo complexes that have been permitted. Some are in construction. Others may come in the future. But we've modeled, how much room and what likely enrollment coming from these new facilities would be, and that all keeps us within the comfortable range of what this design will be able to accommodate. No one knows the future, right? I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what the exact number is, but statistically, the high probability is we will be fine. And because the building is very flexible, we can make adjustments quickly as increases occur. And if we start seeing sustained growth, we have the opportunity to convert the central office space into classrooms. And if we see that it's a longer trend of increases, we can then execute on the expansion designs for the building. And at that point, you get to be a huge high school. 3,600 students is a very large high school. Um, uh, but we're comfortable that the design will manage.
I think this adds on to your point that you added before about flexibility and opportunity that comes with such a big building. And I think it's nice to appreciate that it can accommodate whatever challenges kind of come later on because it's kind of been planned out. And we've heard about it quite a bit today. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today and helping explain and clarify some of the questions that our community has been having. So thank you for your.
Thank you for your time. We really appreciate this.
You're welcome, Margaret. Pleased to be here.
For me, the biggest takeaway from this interview was to understand what was behind every headline or hallway rumor. There are usually a lot of details about process, trade-offs, and what the town and state can actually do. It doesn't make everything simple, but it does make it easier to ask better questions. If you're watching and you want to go deeper, we've put the links in the description to the official resources, earlier episodes in the series, and ways that you can learn more on your own. In our next episode, my mom, Ranjeeta, sits down with Sarah Carter and Joe Pato and Catherine for a longer conversation focused on the numbers, the condition of the current building, alternatives that were considered, tax impact, and how the town is thinking about costs and savings over time. This is an independent student parent series, and our whole goal is just to help Lexington understand what's happening with our high school in a clearer way. I'm Vyushti, and thanks for watching. I hope this episode helped turn some of the noise into real information.